Welcome to a new podcast. Have you ever found yourself in a business negotiation, unsure of how to ask for a better deal or how to navigate tricky conversations? Well, today we're unlocking the secrets to negotiating deals in business. In this episode, we'll dive into essential phrases, powerful strategies, and expert tips that will help you handle any negotiation with confidence. Whether you're sealing a contract, discussing terms, or negotiating a price, you'll leave this episode ready to take on the business world. So let's get started. This is one skill you can't afford to miss.
Okay, so you've got this big negotiation coming up right there, and you're thinking, I've got to be ready for this.
Smart thinking.
We've got a whole bunch of sources here for this deep dive, like actual academic advice, real world tips, and
even a peek into how a master negotiator thinks.
Right, so let's pull out the good stuff, the most useful stuff, and you can walk in there feeling good, not overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's funny how we always think of negotiation as this big formal thing.
Yeah.
But in Greg Williams' YouTube video, he actually just defines it as the interaction that people have to obtain an outcome that they seek. Which is basically every interaction we ever have.
Yeah.
From getting a coffee to,
Right.
that big business deal.
Yeah, even what we're going to watch on TV.
Totally.
It's a little negotiation.
Yeah.
But when it is something really important, that's when it helps to know the rules of the game.
For sure.
And the Walden University and How to Negotiate a Business Deal articles both really stress this idea of prep work, doing your homework.
They're not just talking about knowing your stuff, your facts.
Right.
You need to know that absolute bottom line.
Okay.
What you are willing to walk away from before you even get to the table.
Right.
That's your anchor.
I like that.
So you don't get swept away
Okay.
by whatever is happening in the conversation.
So that kind of ties into what we were reading about, that BATNA.
Yes.
Best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
That's it, yeah. That masterclass article.
Yeah.
Your BATNA is your safety net.
Okay.
Knowing you have other options takes the pressure off.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to be stubborn, but it does mean you won't accept a deal that's actually worse than what you can get somewhere else.
So for example, you're negotiating a salary and they offer you less than you hoped for.
Right.
But if your BATNA is a pretty good offer from another company,
Yes.
you have more power to kind of push back. Right?
Exactly. It gives you the leverage to say, look, I appreciate this, but I need it to be closer to X for me to make this work.
I see.
And beyond just the numbers, How to Negotiate a Business Deal also talks about building rapport.
Okay.
It's not just about the terms of the agreement, but the relationship.
Okay. And that makes me think of that Walden piece of advice about having a friendly approach.
For sure.
It's easy to just get really caught up in the battle, but just a little bit of friendliness can really go a long way.
100%. You're not dealing with some company, you're dealing with a person. You're dealing with another human.
Right.
And actually, Greg Williams tells a story about this in his video.
Oh, yeah.
About a guy trying to buy his building. And the guy was just a total bully, right? Trying to pressure him into a lowball offer.
Wow.
And Greg just walked away.
Good for him.
You know what?
What happened?
He ended up getting a much better deal from someone else down the line.
See, that's what I mean. It's so tempting to just be okay, fine, when someone's being really pushy.
Yeah.
But sometimes walking away is actually the smarter move.
It is. And it shows, that often the best negotiators are the ones that listen the best.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Walden actually mentions the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
Effective negotiators, they say, listen 80% of the time
Whoa.
and only talk 20%.
Okay, hold on. 80% listening.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of what I think of when I think of a negotiation.
Right.
How can you get what you want if you're just listening?
Because it's not about steamrolling.
Okay.
It's about understanding their needs and their motivations, their anxieties even.
Right.
So you can tailor your approach
Okay.
and come up with solutions that actually work for both sides. Plus, it shows respect, which builds trust.
So it's not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Right.
It's you're actually listening and trying to figure out
Yeah.
what's underneath.
Exactly.
It's that saying, you have two ears and one mouth for a reason.
That's right.
But listening isn't just about words. What about body language?
The unspoken language.
Right.
Greg Williams is a master of this.
Yeah.
In his video, he talks about how even a pause, a pregnant pause, can be super revealing. It could be a sign of discomfort or a change of thinking.
So they might not be saying anything,
Right.
but their body's hold on a second.
Totally. A crack in the poker face, so to speak.
So it's not just about what they're saying, it's how they're saying it.
100%.
So fascinating. What are some other tells to look for?
Greg gives some great examples. Leaning back, throat clearing,
Okay.
playing with an earlobe. Even the masterclass article suggests intentionally flinching when you hear a bad offer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's all about sending the right signals and reading the ones they send.
So there's this whole, secret language you need to learn?
Kind of, yes.
Okay, so we've got the prep, the BATNA, the rapport building. That feels like a good foundation.
Yeah.
But how do we actually get to that yes?
Right.
What are the strategies that can actually help us close the deal?
Well, there's an article that tackles that question head on. What is one negotiation strategy that a small business owner can use to help get to a yes fast?
Okay.
And the answer is kind of surprising. It's positioning yourself as someone who's providing a solution, not someone who's just trying to get something.
Interesting. So instead of thinking, what can I get from them?
Yeah.
It's more like, how can I help them get what they need?
That's it. By understanding their needs and actually working collaboratively, you're much more likely to reach an agreement that's good for both sides.
Yeah.
And a lot of our sources really stress that win-win approach.
Right. That makes a lot of sense because it takes the pressure off everyone.
Yeah.
It becomes more of a partnership, not just a battle.
Absolutely.
I remember one of the sources, Brett Farmelo, he suggests this tactic called labeling fears.
Yes. He talks about actually acknowledging the other party's concerns, which can build trust and get things moving.
So, for example, if someone's hesitant about the price, you
Yeah.
might say, it sounds like budget is a big concern. I understand. How about we look at some payment options that might work better for you?
Exactly. You're addressing the elephant in the room, making them feel heard, and finding a solution together.
Got it. This is all clicking for me. So we're not just trying to win, we're trying to collaborate, find a solution.
Yes. It's not about winning at all costs.
Right. And that actually brings us to another point that's important.
Right.
Leverage. Mike Grossman talks about understanding who needs the deal more.
That's a big one, yeah. That can really change how the whole negotiation goes.
So if you have something that no one else has, or if they're under a tight deadline, that gives you more power, right?
Exactly. It's not always about who's the loudest in the room.
It's about understanding the whole situation.
The dynamics, yeah. And using that to your advantage. And once you understand leverage, you can start thinking about all the different negotiation styles and strategies.
You mean like playing hardball versus being more cooperative?
Yeah.
Or are there even more options than that?
There are. The types of negotiation article outlines a bunch of styles, like win-win, also called zero-sum.
Okay.
And then there's win-lose, which is also called win-sum.
I see.
And choosing the right style really depends on the situation and your goals.
So if you're hoping for a long-term partnership, the win-win makes more sense.
Yeah, you're not trying to get every last thing out of the deal.
Right, because if you're too focused on that, you could hurt the relationship.
Absolutely. On the other hand, if it's something like a one-time purchase,
Right.
a win-lose approach might be better.
Okay, so win-win is like we're baking a cake together and we both want a big slice.
Love that, yeah.
Win-lose is more like we're splitting the cake and I want the bigger piece.
Exactly. And like cake, you need to know what kind of outcome you're going for before you start cutting.
Makes sense.
And the Negotiating Deals in Business podcast does a great job of actually breaking down all the different stages of a negotiation.
Okay.
And it starts with building rapport, which we already talked about a little bit.
Right, that human connection.
Yeah, you got to build that trust.
I'm seeing how this is all fitting together now.
Right. Then comes identifying interests.
Okay.
It's not just what the other person says they want, it's why they want it. What's behind that? What are their needs and motivations?
So, like, if I'm applying for a job, it's not just about knowing the salary.
Yeah.
I need to understand what the company really wants in someone.
Exactly. Like, what problems are they trying to solve?
Right, right.
Then once you understand their interests, you can brainstorm solutions that address their needs and your needs.
So that's like that win-win in action.
It is. But even with the most collaborative negotiations, you're going to hit some bumps in the road.
Of course, yeah.
And the podcast actually highlights two big ones: stalemate and concessions.
Stalemate sounds a little scary.
Yeah. It's when you get to a point where no one's budging
Oh, I see.
and it can feel like you've hit a wall.
Right.
Sometimes you just need a break, regroup, and come back to the table fresh. Other times, it might help to bring in a third person, like a mediator.
Okay, so someone neutral
Yeah,
who can kind of make sure everyone's playing fair.
exactly.
Okay, and then there's this issue of concessions.
Right. Every negotiation is going to have some give and take.
Right.
You're going to have to compromise on certain things to get to that agreement.
And this is where knowing your bottom line and your BT&A comes in.
Exactly.
You have to be really clear about what's not negotiable for you, what you're willing to give up, and what you absolutely won't move on.
Absolutely. And don't forget, every concession you make, you should get one back.
Right, right. It's all about finding that balance so it feels fair.
It's like a dance. Both partners are moving in sync.
I love that. So we've got the steps, the body language. It's starting to feel like more than just saying yes or no.
It's about having the right strategy.
Yeah.
And understanding the psychology, knowing how to navigate those different stages.
That's a lot.
It is, but it gets easier.
Right.
And the more you understand, the more confident you'll be.
Okay, so we've talked about the different types of negotiation, those key stages, the importance of things like rapport and leverage and concessions. What are some actual phrases we can use to get through those different stages?
That's a great question. And that's where those useful phrases from the Negotiating Deals in Business podcast really help. They give you kind of a framework, for how to start the conversation, how to make proposals, how to bargain, and ultimately, how to get to that agreement.
I'm ready. Hit me with those phrases.
All right, let's start with opening the negotiation. Something simple like, "So shall we get down to business?"
Okay.
can really signal that you're ready for that productive discussion.
It sets the tone.
It does.
Yeah.
And to kind of figure out what they're expecting, you could ask something like, "What were you thinking in terms of price?"
Okay.
Or "What are you hoping to get out of this negotiation?"
Right.
You're inviting them to kind of share that first offer, which gives you a starting point.
Makes sense. So we've opened the negotiation, got a feel for their initial offer.
Right.
Now we're at the bargaining part.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now you start exploring options and making your counter proposals. A phrase like, "I understand where you're coming from, but I was hoping for something closer to," can be really helpful for stating your position politely but firmly.
Okay. So you're acknowledging them, but
Right.
also standing your ground.
Exactly. And then when things get a little tougher, you could use phrases like, "I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure it's the right fit for me right now," or "We're not quite there yet."
Right.
You're communicating that you're not happy with the offer,
Right.
but you're still open to working something out.
So it's I'm not totally saying no, but you got to give me something better.
Exactly. And remember, these phrases are just like starting points. You can adjust them
Of course. Yeah.
to fit your own style.
Right.
The key is to be clear, respectful,
Right.
and assertive, but not aggressive.
I see. So this is building up a whole toolkit of phrases
Yeah,
to
exactly.
use in all kinds of situations. But it's not justy about the words.
Right.
We talked about body language,
Right.
the psychology of it all.
Right.
And Greg Williams talked about how even just a pause can be powerful.
It can. Silence can make people uncomfortable. It can make them make concessions.
So sometimes it's more powerful to say nothing.
Sometimes it is. And remember, negotiation is like a dance.
Right.
Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. The key is being aware of the rhythm, the music, how your partner is moving.
It's such a good analogy. So we've covered the steps, we've got the phrases, the body language. What about the psychology of it all? How do we actually influence the other person to see things our way?
Now we're getting into the interesting stuff, the psychology of persuasion.
Right.
Remember that masterclass article?
Yeah.
It goes into some really cool techniques for actually influencing how the other person sees things
Okay.
and ultimately how they make decisions. One of the coolest is called mirroring.
Mirroring, like looking in a mirror.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
It's when you subtly repeat some of the words or phrases that the other person's using.
Oh, okay.
And it creates this kind of subconscious rapport,
Okay.
like you understand them.
So if they say something like, "We want a solution that is cost-effective and innovative," you could say, "I understand. Cost-effectiveness and innovation are important to us as well."
Exactly. You're using their words, so you're signaling that you're on the same page. You share their values.
Are you speaking their language?
Literally and figuratively, yeah.
Clever. Are there other psychological things we can do?
There's another really powerful technique called framing.
Okay.
It's about presenting your proposal in a way that really highlights the benefits for the other person.
So not just stating facts, but kind of putting a positive spin on things.
I wouldn't say spinning. It's more about emphasizing what will appeal to them.
Okay.
Like if you're selling a car,
Okay.
instead of focusing on the price, you might talk about how fuel efficient it is.
Right. So it'll save them money in the long run.
Exactly. And that can really change how they see the whole deal.
I see. So you're highlighting the value they're getting, not just the cost.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that can make a big difference.
This is like hacking into the brain.
A little bit, yeah.
Are there any other psychological tricks we should know?
Well, another really important principle is social proof. People are really influenced by what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like that whole, if everyone jumped off a bridge.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
in negotiation, you can use that by highlighting the good experiences that other people have had who've done similar deals.
Okay, so if I'm trying to get someone to invest in my company, I might say other successful investors are already involved.
That's it. Or if you're selling a product, you might say that it's the top-rated product in its category.
Okay. Yeah,
Or it's been featured in a big publication or something.
It's like you're saying, hey, don't just trust me, look what everyone else is doing.
Precisely. Social proof can be really powerful, especially if you combine it with other stuff, like framing or mirroring.
It's like a super combo.
Yeah,
Okay, this is fascinating. It's like a crash course in how to persuade people.
it is. And the more you understand this, the more effective you'll be in your negotiations.
Okay, I'm feeling like I'm starting to understand, but can we go back to something we mentioned earlier, that idea of thinking long-term in negotiation?
Of course.
Yeah.
That's a big one, and Greg Williams really emphasizes this in his video.
Right.
He talks about how the decisions you make today aren't just about today, they impact your future.
Right, it's not just about getting what you want right now. It's thinking about what happens later because of your action.
Exactly. And that includes thinking about relationships you might build or damage in the process.
Right, because even if I get a great deal, if I burn a bridge,
Right.
it could hurt me later.
Exactly. So it's really important to approach negotiations fairly, with respect, and with integrity.
It's like what goes around comes around.
That's it. And by thinking about those long-term implications, you can create wins for everybody, now and in the future.
I love that. This whole deep dive has really opened my eyes.
I'm glad.
I feel much more prepared and ready to face my next negotiation no matter what happens.
That's great. And remember, this is a skill you can keep developing.
Right.
The more you do it, the better you'll get at navigating these conversations.
The better you'll get at getting what you want.
And helping other people get what they want, too,
Yeah.
which is just as important.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited to put all of this into practice. And to all our listeners out there, we want to hear about your negotiation wins.
Yeah, let us know.
Share your stories with us on social media. We love hearing how these deep dives help you in real life.
Until next time, happy negotiating.
And remember, it's not about winning or losing. It's about finding solutions that work for everyone.
That's the heart of it.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with another deep dive on something that matters to you. Yeah.
It really is. It's a journey, not just a destination. And before we go too far, maybe we should come back to those those negotiation decoy and good cop, bad cop tactics we mentioned.
A little sneaky, right?
Yeah, they raise some eyebrows, don't they?
I have to admit, I'm not sure I'm really comfortable with that kind of thing. Even if it works,
Yeah.
it feels kind of, I don't know.
Icky.
Yeah, a little icky, manipulative even.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, those tactics usually work better in those situations where you don't really care about the long-term relationship.
Right. I
Like
mean,
haggling at a flea market or buying a used car, something like that. It's just a one-time thing.
okay, so like if I'm trying to get that vintage record player I want, I might use that negotiation decoy by pointing out a flaw in it so they're more likely to come down on the price.
Exactly. Or let's say you're working with someone, a partner.
Right.
One of you could play good cop while the other one's bad cop,
Yeah.
put a little pressure on. But I have to say, you really got to be careful with those tactics.
Yeah.
They can backfire pretty easily.
You need to have a moral compass.
You do.
Yeah.
What kind of negotiator do you want to be? What kind of reputation do you want?
Yeah, those are good questions.
It's easy to get lost in all the tactics and lose sight of the big picture.
It is, yeah.
And it's important to remember that negotiation, it's not one size fits all.
Right.
What works in one situation might be a total disaster in another.
So how do you know which approach to take?
Yeah,
There's just so much to consider.
there is. But honestly, the more you do it, the more you kind of get a feel for it.
Okay.
That types of negotiation article we mentioned earlier,
Right.
that actually has a really helpful way of thinking about this.
Oh, yeah, the win-win versus win-lose style.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
So win-win, also called zero-sum, is all about collaboration.
Okay,
Both sides are working together to try to find that solution that works for everyone.
okay.
That's the ideal when you want that long-term relationship.
Right.
Like a business partnership or a job negotiation.
Because if you're too focused on squeezing every last thing out of the deal, you could hurt the relationship.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Then on the other hand, you've got win-lose, which is also called win some, and that's more competitive.
Right.
You're trying to get as much as you can,
Yeah.
even if it means the other person doesn't get what they want.
Okay.
And that might be fine for one-time things.
Right.
Like if you're never going to see this person again.
Makes sense.
So win-win is like we're baking a cake together and we both want a big slice. Win-lose is like we're splitting the cake and I want the bigger piece.
That's a good way to put it.
Right. And just like with cake, you got to decide what you want before you start cutting.
Makes sense.
Now, the Negotiating Deals the Business podcast, they do a great job of actually breaking down these different stages of a negotiation.
Okay.
It all starts with that rapport building that we talked about.
Right, that connection.
Yeah, got to build that trust.
This is all making sense now, all coming together.
And then you move on to identifying interests. Remember, it's not just what they say they want, it's why they want it.
Okay, yeah.
What are they really after? Yeah.
Right, so if I'm applying for a job, it's not enough to just know the salary range. I got to understand what the company is really looking for.
Exactly. What problem are they trying to solve by hiring someone?
Right.
And once you get that, then you can start brainstorming, finding solutions that work for both of you.
So that's win-win in action.
It is. But even the best situations, when everyone's collaborating, you're going to run into some challenges.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And the podcast actually talks about two common ones, stalemate and concessions.
Stalemate. That sounds bad.
It can be. It's when you get to this point where neither side is budging.
It's like hitting a wall.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to take a break,
Yeah.
come back with a fresh perspective. And sometimes it actually helps to bring in someone neutral, a mediator.
So like a referee,
Yeah,
making sure everyone's playing by the rules.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole issue of concessions.
Right.
Every negotiation is going to involve some give and take.
Right.
You got to be willing to compromise on some things to get to that agreement.
So this is where knowing your bottom line and your BAT&A is super important, right?
It is. It is. You got to know what's not negotiable from you, what you're willing to give up, and what you absolutely won't budge on.
Okay.
And remember, every concession you make,
Yeah.
you should get one back from the other side.
Yeah.
Got to find that balance.
Right. So it feels fair.
Yeah.
So it really asks like a dance.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Both partners moving together.
Okay. Wow. So we've got the steps, the phrases, the body language. It's more than just saying yes or no.
It's way more than that. It's about strategy and psychology,
Right.
knowing how to move through those stages.
I feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
We are. There's so much to learn.
Yeah.
But the more you know,
Right.
the more confident you're going to be.
So we've talked about these different types of negotiations, the key stages, all that stuff about rapport and leverage and concessions. What are some actual phrases we can use to get through those stages?
Ah, that's a good question. And that's where those handy phrases from the Negotiating Deals in Business podcast really come in.
Okay.
They give you like a script almost,
Right.
for how to start that conversation, how to propose things, how to bargain, and how to actually reach that agreement.
All right, lay it on me. Give me the phrases.
Okay, so to open the negotiation, start with something simple, like, so shall we get down to business?
All right.
Signals that you're ready to have a productive discussion.
Sets a tone.
It does. Now,
Good.
to figure out what they're expecting, you could ask something like, what sort of price did you have in mind?
Okay.
Or what are you hoping to get out of this negotiation?
Okay, yeah.
You're basically inviting them to make that first offer.
Right. So that gives us a place to start. So we've opened the negotiation. We got a sense of their offer. Now we're getting to the bargaining stage, right?
Exactly. This is where you start exploring different options, making counter proposals. A phrase like, I understand where you're coming from, but I was hoping for something closer to, can really help.
Mhm.
You're stating your position politely but firmly.
Okay. So you're acknowledging them, but you're also holding your ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when things get a little tougher, you can try things like, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure it's the right fit for me right now.
Right.
Or, we're not quite there yet.
Okay, yeah.
You're letting them know you're not happy,
Right.
but you're still open to talking.
Right. So it's like, I'm not rejecting you, but you need to come back with something better.
Exactly. And these are just examples,
Right. Of course.
You can tailor them, make them your own.
Yeah.
The important thing is to be clear, respectful, and assertive, but not aggressive.
Got it. So it's like we're building a toolkit
Yep.
of phrases we can use, but it's not just about the words.
Right.
We've got the body language too.
Right.
Remember what Greg Williams said, even a pause can be powerful.
It can. Silence can make people uncomfortable, and that can sometimes make them give you what you want.
So sometimes it's better to say nothing at all?
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Negotiation's like a dance, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. It's about being aware of the rhythm, the music, your partner's moves.
Okay. So we've got the steps, the phrases, the body language. How about the psychology of all this? How do we get the other person to see our side?
The psychology of persuasion. That's the really interesting part. You know that masterclass article?
Yeah.
They get into some really cool techniques for actually influencing how the other person sees things.
Okay. Yeah.
And ultimately how they make decisions. One of the best is this thing called mirroring.
Mirroring, like looking in a mirror.
Not quite. It's about subtly repeating some of the words or phrases that the other person uses.
Oh, I see.
It kind of creates this subconscious feeling of understanding.
So if they say something like, we need a solution that's cost-effective and innovative, I might say,
Right.
I understand. Cost-effectiveness and innovation are crucial for us as well.
Exactly. You're using their words, so you're signaling that you're on the same page, you share their values.
So you're speaking their language.
Yeah, literally and figuratively.
That's clever. What else can we do, psychologically speaking?
Well, there's another really powerful technique called framing.
Okay.
It's about presenting your proposal in a way that really highlights the benefits for them.
So you're not just stating facts, but you're putting a positive spin on things.
I wouldn't say spinning. It's more about emphasizing the parts that will appeal to them.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you're selling a car,
Right.
instead of focusing on the price, you might emphasize its fuel efficiency.
Right, because that will save them money.
Exactly. And that can really change how they see the whole deal.
So it's about focusing on the value they're getting, not
Yeah.
just what it costs. This is like mind control or something. Are there any other psychological tricks I should know about?
Well, another really important principle is social proof.
Okay.
People are influenced by what other people are doing.
It's like how all the teenagers want to wear the same shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in a negotiation, you can use this by highlighting the good experiences that other people have had with something similar.
Okay, so if I'm trying to get someone to invest in my company,
Right.
I might mention other successful investors who are already on board.
Exactly. Or if you're selling something, you could mention that it's the top-rated product in its category,
Okay.
or that it was featured in some big publication.
So it's like, hey, don't just take my word for it. Look what everyone else is saying.
Precisely. Social proof can be really powerful, especially if you combine it with framing and mirroring.
It's like the ultimate combo.
It is.
Okay, this is fascinating. It's like a crash course in how to persuade people.
It is. And the more you understand these things,
Right.
the better you'll be at negotiating.
Okay. I feel like I'm starting to get this. But can we go back to something we talked about before? Thinking long-term in negotiations.
Of course. That's so important, and it's something that Greg Williams really stresses in his video. He talks about how the decisions you make today will have ripple effects.
Right, so it's not just about what I get now, it's about the consequences of what I do.
Exactly, and that includes the relationships you build or damage during the negotiation.
Right, because even if I get a good deal, if I burn bridges,
Yeah,
it could hurt me down the road.
exactly. So it's crucial to approach negotiations with fairness, respect, and integrity.
What goes around comes around.
That's it. And if you're mindful of the long term, you can create wins for everyone. Not just now, but later on, too.
I love that. This whole deep dive has been amazing. It's really opened my eyes.
Good. I'm glad.
I feel so much more ready to handle my next negotiation, whatever happens.
That's fantastic. And remember, this is a skill. You can keep getting better and better at it.
Right. Practice makes perfect.
The more you do it, the better you'll get at it.
And the better I'll get at getting what I want.
Exactly. And helping other people get what they want, too, which is just as important.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to put all of this into practice. And to our listeners, we want to hear about your wins.
Yes. Let us know how it goes.
Share your stories with us on social media. We love hearing how these deep dives are helping you in your real life.
Until next time, happy negotiating.
And remember, it's not about winning or losing. It's about finding those solutions that work for everyone.
That's the sign of a true master.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something that matters to you.
Yeah, it really is. It makes you think about things differently. You know, even with all this talk about tactics and strategies, it seems like a lot of it comes down to, I don't know, mindset.
You're right. You're right. Preparation isn't just about knowing the facts. It's about getting in the right headspace. So even before I walk into the room, I should be visualizing how it's going to go. thinking about what might happen, maybe even practicing how I'll respond.
Exactly. Think of it like rehearsing for a play. The more prepared you are, the less likely you are to get flustered if something unexpected comes up.
And part of that is remembering what we talked about before, knowing your worth and being okay with walking away.
Exactly.